Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the European Football Roundup for the Main Event podcast. My name is Aaron. I'll be taking you through all the Champions League qualified teams, how they got on the weekend, and see if there's anyone we need to keep an eye on. But first of all, just a couple of announcements for the podcast. The game has launched, so even though it's not fully populated with all the teams just yet, there's still some teams that haven't qualified fully, but we are now able to go build in our teams and kind of get an idea on price points, stuff like that. So make sure to check that out, update the app. That's what I did, and it worked for me. But as well, some people have got on through the website that way and kind of just played around a little bit. Don't take it too seriously just yet. But kind of carrying on from that, it's the last round of playoffs. So the winner of these ties will go on to qualify for the Champions League. They will be played over this week and next. So definitely check them out and have a look at their teams. See if there's anyone we need to keep an eye on just there. And but also with these videos, just based on the kind of the last episode, because more teams are starting to come into these videos, we've decided that we're not going to do the Premier League teams. And that's basically because we all watch the Premier League, we all play FPL, we kind of know how they've gotten on. So it just kind of made sense that you, rather than kind of hearing information that you already know, especially when it is just such a quick fire, who scored, just a small stat here and there, it's probably something that we already know. So if you want Dan's insight, make sure to check out Gallagher Shots. They do an FPL show, and Dan is all over on there doing FPL content. So, but don't worry, he'll be back for main event when the Champions League content starts. Make sure you're subscribed for that and get ready for a new season. We'll start off this week with the Bundesliga. We're going to start with Bayern Munich. So Bayern Munich won 2-0 against Wolfsburg. Musiala in the score sheet again. That's 3 for the season in 2 games. And Muller was the other goal scorer. Kimmich was the assister for that. So that's 2 attack and returns for Kimmich, and Muller's first attack and return this season. Sadio Mane had a goal disallowed, which I think is interesting to note. He also played up front again, this time with Gnabry. I think he played up front with Gnabry last week as well, just off the top of my head. But something that I'm going to do in future episodes is I'm going to start to, as we get more data, I can then start to display trends. At the start of the season, it's literally just going to be kind of, this is what's happened, while we start to figure out with the data what different teams are planning on doing, kind of give you a heads up. So if there is any kind of stats that you're interested to know, drop them in the comments below or send us a message over on Twitter. And that way I can start to tailor these for content and stats that you actually are wanting to hear about. Please get in touch with that. So Mane had a goal disallowed, playing up front again. Very close, obviously, with Mane. We know that he's got that pace to get in behind. So likelihood it was an offside. Moving on from Bayern Munich, well, obviously they kept a clean sheet, so Neuer was well behaved this week. I've not had a chance to watch all the highlights, but from what I gathered and what the result shows, he was well behaved. They kept a clean sheet. I still don't know if I would trust them, and I think interestingly, UCL has priced Bayern Munich defenders a little bit cheaper than past seasons. So Alphonso Davies a little bit cheaper, which makes him quite interesting. But we'll get on to that. The price reactions and stuff like that, they're coming. So just again, subscribe. Make sure you don't miss them when they are out. Dortmund win 3-1 with Freiburg. Mokoko with a goal and an assist. Dortmund have some interesting prices as well, so make sure to go check them out. But another good win for Dortmund at home. They weren't as solid defensively, unlike the last game, but overall, very solid. They are currently second in the table. Seems like it's going to be a Bayern Munich Dortmund race again, but I don't know how long this race will last for with just how dominant Bayern Munich are. Frankfurt, Eintracht Frankfurt, they drew 1-1 with Hertha Berlin. Kamada was the goal scorer, and it's not the greatest start for them. We'll see what happens kind of as the season goes on, but I don't know what. It's not going to be good pickings for them, depending on what group they are in. If it turns out to be kind of like a Group D, like last year with Sporting and stuff like that, could be very interesting. But I think that they are not as good of a side. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, Bundesliga fans. Like I said, we're as I said last episode, getting used to these leagues, starting to deep dive a little bit more into them on a regular basis rather than just before Champions League. But it's not a great start so far, and we saw what you could do in the Europa League final. So, speaking of bad starts, Leverkusen lost 2-1 to Augsburg. Adli also got injured, so he has a broken collarbone. I think if I remember correctly, a collarbone injury keeps you, it's a 2-week recovery before the bone heals, before even you looked at the rehab work. But with technology these days, you never know. But a broken bone is never fun, especially when you're jumping up for headers and stuff like that in football. So it could be a little bit longer than the 2 weeks. I'm sure it's just 2 weeks out of action completely, and then you start to come in. But correct me if I'm wrong. And lastly, for Bundesliga, Leipzig, the return of Timo Werner, obviously got on the score sheet. It was just written in the stars. Great goal as well, great finish. Nkunku scored the second. So that's a goal in both of his games so far. Great start for them, but unfortunately, they're just not getting them wins. So we'll see how they get on later as well. But Nkunku, again, just seems like a solid option. And Timo Werner, we knew what a force he was. And I believe he's priced at the Chelsea price as well, as a kind of bench option. So that could be an interesting pick, depending on what their group is. So this week we saw the return of Serie A. Very excited for this. Get to see AC Milan defend their title, defend their Scudetto. This week they won 4-2 against Udinese. Very excited. Something that I thought was unfortunate was I didn't realize that Sandro Tonali was out injured. Not going to be out for long, though. I'm sure he's going to return pretty soon. I think the thing that gets everyone from a fantasy perspective excited is that Theo Hernandez took a penalty, and he scored. And obviously, with Kessie leaving to go to Barcelona, that kind of penalty kind of taker opened up. From what I've gathered amongst other AC Milan fans, Giroud will be the number one penalty taker, but he doesn't always start every game, and I can't see him starting every Champions League game either. So Theo Hernandez, who's already such an attacking outlet, very good defensively as well, very good defensive team. Also on penalties, he seems like a really, really good option. And Rebic got 2 goals as well. Good start for him. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see Rafael Leao get on the score sheet. Hopefully he's back firing, because I think he's priced at kind of that premium for this team. So that's going to be interesting. Hopefully he gets back up to form, because he is such a talent. But AC Milan, great win, 4-2. I think something that I also want to point out from a Champions League perspective is that Kalulu, great partnership, him and Tomori signing a new contract. But Kalulu stopped what was almost a certain goal at the weekend. Looks great for ball recoveries. I've not had a full chance to look at the prices, but just looks like a really great defensive option for ball recoveries as well. So I don't know if we can afford. I wouldn't recommend getting at this point Theo and Kalulu, but if you can't afford Theo Hernandez, Kalulu could be a great option. Juventus played this evening at the time of recording, yesterday night at the time of release. Vlahovic got back on the score sheet when he seemed to almost transfer over to Juventus. He didn't seem to gel quite as quickly, but I think with the outgoings of the strikers for Juventus, Vlahovic is now like the main guy. I think that's when he really excels. 2 goals, and Di Maria, also a new player for Juventus, he got on the score sheet as well. Di Maria assisted one of the other goals for Vlahovic, and Vlahovic won and scored a penalty for that other goal. I think something that's interesting as well, just to point out for Juventus, is that Cuadrado seems to, whatever they position him on fantasy games, whether that's midfielder or defender, he seems to always play in the opposite. So if he's positioned as a defender on fantasy, he will then be a midfielder on the game, like in real life, vice versa. That happened again. I think he's a defender in both fantasy Serie and in Champions League, and he's played as a right winger. So 4-4-2 formation seemed to be used, but Cuadrado could be an out of position already that we can kind of keep an eye on, although he's never been kind budget wise. Napoli winning 5-2, had 5 different goal scorers. I'll put them on the screen, but they also had 5 different assisters as well. Obviously, some people who scored may have also got an assist, but I think at this point we just wait and see with Napoli. The great side, but with Insigne, Mertens, Koulibaly all leaving, it's a new generation of a team. So we need to kind of wait and see if they are this attacking. They could be, I don't want to say the new Atalanta because Napoli were there first, but in terms of people who we try and target, could be some nice budget options in there for if they are continue to be this attacking. Obviously, with the absence of Koulibaly, the defensive frailty showed, conceding the 2 goals, but then again, so did AC Milan. And to finish off Serie A, Inter, they won 2-1 thanks to a Denzel Dumfries last minute screamer. What a goal. He's just such a good option. But again, just that we're just not sure who's going to start at that right wing back position. Darmian started the game. He assisted the first goal, which was obviously scored by Lukaku. Who else would it on his return? It just was written in the stars. So Lukaku returning to Inter scored a goal assisted by Darmian. But then it just took a Denzel Dumfries goal in the last minute to get that win. Great result for Inter, and they look in good. They look in a good place to be able to win back the Scudetto. It's going to be a really interesting race. Obviously, with Roma, AC Milan looking to defend it, Juventus and Inter could be a good league to watch this year. It was also the start of La Liga this week. We saw Barcelona manage to just register enough of their players to be able to. I think it was only Jules Koundé that they weren't able to register. Still a bit of a mess. I'm not a fan of it. I've not been a fan of Barcelona for a while. If you haven't told from these episodes, just from episodes of the podcast, so not a fan of how they've done their business. But regardless, they drew 0-0. Not a great result to start off. It was a game that they should have won, and it was very flat. So obviously, a lot of new players. They need time to gel. They don't know who's the outgoings are going to be. So I can't imagine that it's a good place to be right now. So we'll see how that goes in the meantime. but a 0-0 to start. Real Madrid win 2-1 with Alaba coming off the bench and then a minute later scoring. So great super sub. I don't think he'll be a super sub going into the season, but Vasquez also getting the goal assisted by Benzema. So Benzema didn't get a goal, but again, just shows that he's not just a goal scorer. He adds so much to a team. So, but interestingly, even though he didn't play as big of a role, Vinicius Jr. won man of the match. I've not reread the rules, but man of the match points for Champions League was such a big differential in terms of setting someone from having a good week to an amazing week. So Vinicius Jr. still would have got some points if that was the case in Champions League. Sevilla lost 2-1, very controversially. There was a penalty decision which VAR didn't overturn for I guess I'll just say it how the Spanish media have said it, a flying elbow, but it's also, I heard it seen as a ghost elbow. Basically, it was just because the player was short, needing to put his hands up to kind of put a little bit of distance, and the elbow ended up brushing the face of the other guy. And yeah, it seemed to be a lot of controversy over that. But Sevilla losing 2-1 to start the season, not a great start. Sevilla seem to do that as well in terms of they'll go on a great run right as we're picking our teams, transferring a few players, and then they go back to performances like this. So I can imagine a few people at the start of Fantasy La Liga, if there is such a thing. I'm guessing there will be. Probably had a few Sevilla players and they just fantasy trolls, honestly. Atletico Madrid played on Monday evening. They won 3-0. Of course, they got a clean sheet because it is Atletico Madrid. It'll be interesting to see how the defenders are priced, as always. But Alvaro Morata, going from Juventus to Atletico Madrid, scored 2 goals. Griezmann scored the other goal, but João Felix got all 3 assists. So it seems to be a good partnership there. I mean, there was already João Felix. We know what a threat he is, but getting all 3 assists for whoever was his strike partner is a great start. Something I think that was interesting was Saul coming straight back from Chelsea, going straight back at left wing back. I just do not understand it, but people seem to see him as a left wing back now, so it is what it is. Carrying on, Ligue 1, with my French pronunciations coming in. Paris Saint-Germain win again. And I think the biggest story of this was the fact that Mbappe is receiving some negative press. Probably, I mean, he probably is not the first time that he's received negative press, but it's the first time where people are now starting to be unanimous and also starting to be on Team Neymar ahead of Mbappe because of how much of a spoilt brat he's been. There's the viral video, of course, of Mbappe just stopping running on a counter-attack because he didn't get the pass. He missed a penalty, and then later when Neymar went to go and take his penalty, he is seen arguing with Neymar. It seemed a bit soft, but he still like barged shoulders with Messi, and you see Messi kind of like, what's going on? So it almost seems like it's going to be, obviously, we know the friendship between Messi and Neymar. Seems like it's going to be a Messi Neymar friendship against Mbappe, with Mbappe obviously having all these powers now of how he's basically the most powerful footballer in the world. Almost like a player manager on FIFA. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that dynamic, how it happens, because there's even reports coming out in the French media. It's been reported on other outlets as well now that Mbappe wants Neymar to leave. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think that'll happen, but it depends with the spoilt child. Sometimes you've just got to give them what they want. Marseille drew 1-1 and the goal they conceded was just an absolute worldie. There's a couple of screamers. I think Dortmund's goal that they conceded was unreal as well. But Tavares from Arsenal scores again, 2 goals in 2 weeks. So great, I guess, move for him so far. Hopefully he keeps that going because he could be a great option that maybe gets overlooked by Arsenal fans. But great transfer so far for him. Moving on to the Portuguese league, and I realized that I didn't talk about these last week. They just got lost in my notes, so apologies for that. But Sporting win 3-0, and they drew 3-3 last week. So the consecutive games are scoring 3 goals. Gonçalves scores twice this week, and he also scored last week as well. However, there's going to be a few of their players potentially getting picked up by the end of the transfer window. So we'll see how they get on. Porto, don't worry, it'll all tie in together. I'm not just brushing over it. Porto with a 90th minute winner to win 1-0. And they also won 5-1 last week. Taremi getting back in amongst the goals. What a legend he has been over Fantasy Champions League. But these will be moved to the top of next week's show because, like I said before, if there is a clash between 2 Champions League caliber teams, they will go to the top of the show. So Porto versus Sporting next week. You can really see how these teams do when they're facing teams of similar quality. So Quickfire to finish off the episode. Ajax wins 6-1. Bergwijn scores a hat-trick. Great. Obviously, he's moved from Tottenham, but scoring a hat-trick seems to be a great move for him. Anthony scoring a goal, and there's a beautiful video of him doing just unbelievable trickery, something that I can't even pull off on FIFA. So just make sure to go see it. It'll be interesting to see if he's still there by the end of the transfer window. I believe he will be, but you never know with these things. And Berghaus scored a penalty, so he could be the penalty taker now that Haller is not there. Celtic win 5-0 in their highly competitive Scottish Premier League with 5 different goal scorers. So I think similar to Napoli, we need to just kind of wait and see who emerges to be that in-form player. But great win for them, and they could be joined by Rangers, and I said that last week. Great comeback for them. Bruges won 3-0, obviously with the Club Bruges. Lang on penalties seems to be a good shout, and obviously we've got a few of the players in there that we love from Bruges. RB Salzburg win 2-1 in their league. Again, just another great attacking side, and just seem to get the job done in their domestic league, although they are second currently. So it'll be interesting to see when they face first place how that goes. And Shakhtar Donetsk, they played 2 friendlies in the same day, so similar to career mode. That's a lot of FIFA references for one episode. Have to cut that back in the future. Probably because I was looking at the prizes for this year's Champions League. Shakhtar Donetsk, they won 2 friendlies on the same day. They won 3-0 and 1-0. They basically split the team in half and did that. And obviously, it's not the best preparation, but again, nothing to say that the league isn't going to go ahead. They did lose 5-0 to Roma. Definitely got to mention that, but there's not a lot of information on these games. So I think once the league starts, they're going to be a team that we keep an eye on. But to be honest, I think it's not going to be good when it comes to them. I don't think that they'll be able to host teams in Ukraine. I think that they'll have to play in neutral venues, which isn't going to work well. And we'll see how it goes. But at least that way, hopefully, they'll be able to get a few fans there. But That is everything for this episode, Quickfire European Football. Uh, Please make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and leave a comment, please, on any particular stats that you're looking for. Are you looking for trends with players? Who's starting next to who? Heat maps. Just that it'll help me kind of know what information to pull, especially because it is a lot of teams to talk about. I talk about more teams here than most people do, actually, in all of FPL do, because that was 24 teams and there's only going to get more and more. And so I don't want to have these episodes be long. So if I can focus on information that you are looking for, please let me know in the comments or get in touch at UCL Fantasy Pod. And lastly, just make sure to subscribe. There's going to be some new videos coming up, the group previews, our first drafts, our price reactions, stuff like that. So please make sure to subscribe, and we'll make sure to keep releasing all this content. A lot of exciting things planned for this year, and we're hoping to have you along for the journey. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope to see you next week. And I don't have any catchy catchphrases yet. Probably never will. So bye.